Hidden in a thick forest near the municipality of Blach in the Liberec region of the Czech Republic, Houska Castle is shrouded in nightmarish myth and occultist legend. The imposing structure was built atop a cliff in an area of forests, swamps and mountains with no external fortifications, no source of water except for a cistern to collect rainwater, no kitchen, far from any trade routes, and with no occupants at its time of completion. Many claim that it was not built to keep evil from entering, but to prevent evil from coming out. This is because local folklore considers the castle to cover one of the gateways to hell, built to prevent demons from reaching the rest of the world. Houska Castle was built in the second half of the 13th century, probably on the orders of Bohemian ruler Ottokar II of Bohemia during his reign, to serve as an administration center from which his extensive royal estates could be overseen. Later on it passed to the hands of the aristocracy, frequently passing from the ownership of one to another. From 1584 to 1590, the castle underwent Renaissance-style modifications, losing none of its fortress features as it looks down from a steep rocky cliff. In the 18th century, it stopped serving as a noble residence and fell into a state of disrepair before being renovated in 1823. In 1897, it was purchased by Princess Hohenlohe, and in 1924 it was bought by the president of Škoda, Joseph Simonek. As of 2020, it was owned by his descendants. According to the castle's official website, it was built in the 13th century as an administrative hub for the king, but local folklore maintains that the true purpose of its construction was to seal a gaping crack in the limestone. Many local residents believe this was a gateway to hell from which demonic beings emerged to feed on villagers and drag them back into the abyss, never to be seen again. Legend has it that prisoners who were facing the gallows were offered full pardons, but only if they agreed to be lowered into the bottomless hole and report on what they saw. The first man to do so was young and healthy, and he happily accepted. Within seconds, however, he cried to be raised up. When he was pulled from the chasm, he looked as if he had aged 30 years. He had grown wrinkles and his hair had turned white. While Houska Castle now welcomes countless tourists from around the world, the limestone cliff on which it sits has drawn people in since antiquity. Archaeological evidence shows Celtic tribes inhabited the land far before the Middle Ages, and Slavic tribes migrated to the region in the 6th century. As Bohemian chronicler Václav Hašek detailed in his Czech Chronicle in 1541, the first known structure at the site was a small wooden fort in the 9th century. Hašek also recounted local folklore that described the emergence of a crack in the cliff. It revealed a seemingly endless abyss that villagers deemed an entrance to hell. Locals were terrified of half-human hybrids that were said to crawl out of the hole at night to kill and tear livestock apart. Fearful of turning into these demonic entities themselves, villagers avoided the rocky entrance. They tried to block it with stones, but the abyss allegedly gobbled up anything they dropped into it, refusing to be filled. King Ottokar II of Bohemia had the Gothic structure built sometime between 1253 and 1278. Oddly, the original construction omitted stairs from the courtyard to the upper floors, and most of the structure's defenses were built facing inwards. It was as if the purpose of the castle wasn't to keep invaders out, but rather to keep something trapped within. Perhaps most notable of all, the king had the gateway to hell sealed with stone plates and had a chapel built above it. The chapel was dedicated to the Archangel Michael, who led God's armies against Lucifer's fallen angels, leading some to believe the gateway truly existed. According to the Prague tourism website, the castle is reputed to have various types of ghosts, including a bullfrog/human creature, a headless horse, and an old woman, as well as the remains of demonic beasts who escaped the pit. By 1639, the castle was occupied by a Swedish mercenary named Aranto. The black magic practitioner allegedly toiled nightly in his laboratory in an effort to create an elixir for eternal life. This instilled villagers with so much mortal fear that 2 local hunters assassinated him. Despite Aranto's death, locals continued to avoid the area. Scholars have since discovered cracks in Hašek's histories, and any evidence of Oronto's existence is rather dubious. However, Houska Castle did trade hands between various nobles and aristocrats in later centuries. The castle was renovated in the 1580s, fell into disrepair by the 1700s, and was fully restored in 1823. A century later, Joseph Simonek, president of Skoda Auto, purchased the castle for himself. In the 1940s, the Nazis overtook the castle during their occupation of Czechoslovakia, though their reasons for doing so are unclear, as the castle lacked defenses and was 30 miles from Prague. It is believed by some that they needed to secure the 13,000 manuscript library of SS leader Heinrich Himmler, who was obsessed with the occult and believed that its power would help the Nazis rule the world. Himmler allegedly feared his trove of blasphemous materials would be destroyed in the war, but something even more sinister may have been afoot. Locals at the time reported strange lights and horrifying sounds coming from the castle. Some say that many top Nazi officials, including Himmler, attended dark ceremonies at Houska Castle in which they attempted to harness the power of hell. After the war, the Simonek family regained ownership of Houska Castle, and they still own it to this day. The Prague Daily Monitor reports that many visitors are baffled by its counterintuitive architecture and unnerved by the fresco paintings in the chapel. The strangest of these paintings depicts a creature with the upper body of a human woman and the lower body of a horse. While it was unheard of at the time to include depictions of pagan mythology in a church, even more staggering is the fact that the centaur is using its left hand to shoot an arrow, as left-handedness was associated with service to Satan in the Middle Ages. Historians believe the painting is a hint to the creatures that lurk beneath the church. Indeed, to this day, visitors claim to hear screams and scratching noises from beneath the chapel floor. Currently, the castle is open to the public and has been since 1999. Tourists may visit the chapel with fading frescoes and murals including pictures of demon-like figures and animal-like beings.